Hey everybody, it's TIE Fighter 77 here to talk about the ultimate mission template. This is brand new, hot off the presses. I know some of you have been waiting a little while for it. Sorry, it's been done for a while, but it really needs a tutorial video to go along with it, and I hadn't got around to making it until now. So thanks for being patient, and hopefully it's worth the wait. Made this template to be able to handle as many possible variations and customizations and situations that could come up. Um, this is a template for creating missions and campaigns for modern classic Zombicide. Have to specify classic now because second edition is about to arrive at our doors here pretty soon. So, but I love first edition. I love the aesthetics and all of it. So this template is for that, and hopefully people will still be making missions and campaigns for first edition long into the future. So just to look at the template, what's included here really quick. Here's the campaign title page. Here's mission page examples, and you know, I've never seen a 4 or 5 page mission, but I'm sure they are out there, and you could add even more pages if you wanted. Let's talk about the files. So these here, the IDML and the INDD files, are the InDesign templates themselves. The difference between these two files is the IDML file is for opening on older versions of InDesign. Like I've tried it on CS5 and it works, but of course the INDD file that this template was created with will not open on those older versions. So this version will open, and they're the same pretty much. So the PDF, don't worry about that. InDesign auto generates that when you package a template. This wiggity whack file right here is just a temporary thing that shows up while you've got the template open and are editing it. It will go away when you close the template. The fonts that are needed for this template are included in the download. The links are, this is how InDesign saves the images that are part of its template or its files. It saves it in a folder where it can access them. If you move that folder, the links will be broken and InDesign will have a panic attack. So the next folder is map assets. Now this is included to make your life easier for mission creation. I'll just open this folder up really quick. So when you're making map legends, you're going to need, you know, icons that match your map. So they're included here. You got doors and tents and miscellaneous tokens of all kinds, and zombies if you want to place zombies on your map, including some custom ones that are added because they're missing from the official map editor files, but we'll go into that a bit later. There's also a folder here called overlays, and we'll talk about that later as well. What's not included in this download are things like art, like we've got TIFF and this pan here. Those are available to download in the same place that you found this template. If you haven't found this template, you just need to join the Discord and you'll find the links there in the downloads channel. It's a great community, you know, the more the merrier, so come on board. And there's way more cool stuff than, you know, there's templates and everything else you can think of for Zombicide, all versions. So come check that out. Okay, now let's go over some InDesign basics, because some of you might be brand new to InDesign. It doesn't take very long at all to learn InDesign well enough to be able to use this template. In fact, I learned everything I needed to build this template watching like one or two YouTube videos. And there's one that's really great by this guy, Daniel Walter Scott. The channel is called Invato Toots, and I'll put a link to it. It's not that long of a video. I think it's like 40 minutes or half an hour or something, and you'll feel like you can just jump right into InDesign after you watch it. But let's say you've got InDesign open, you're ready to go. The first thing you want to do is make sure that you have the same menu panels available that you're going to need for this template. So for example, you'll need pages, you'll need text wrap, You'll probably need the character and paragraph styles if you want to edit any of that. And if those are not showing up on your sidebar there, uh, you can just toggle those by going to Window, and you find one that's missing that you want to add, and you will click it. Let's say comments, PDF comments. There we go. So now I've got it's empty. That's fun. I've never messed with this one before. Now I've got this floating around. If I want to dock it, I'll just drag him in, drop it. There it is. I do not need that, so I'm going to close it. All right, so that's how you add those. One thing that you often need when you're in InDesign is guidelines. You want to see column edges and things like that. So let's zoom into the page here. The way you toggle that is super simple. You just press W, and hopefully you're not on the menu when you do it, so it doesn't do that. Just press W, and bing, there they are. So you can see that it shows you the bleed and where the page cuts off, and predefined, like you can edit these, of course, if you wanted to, but you might need the column guides to see, so you can match up text boxes or whatever you want to do. You want to leave things at the bottom, the same margin there. So it's good to see those. W, let's turn them off because they're messy. Let's talk about text boxes. So this is the main thing about InDesign, right? You're making documents that have text. It might be a little different than some of the programs you're used to. Like you may be used to just clicking the text tool and clicking somewhere on the document and just starting to type, right? But in InDesign, typically what we do is we create a text box. So what we would do there is take our cursor, our tool, and click and drag a box, and then we can begin to type in the box. So if you select it, you can see where the boundaries are, and you can mess with it. So let's talk a little bit about resizing boxes and things to meet the needs that you have for the template for your mission. Let's say you make a text box and you paste in your text and there's not enough room, and you get something that looks like this little red plus, and you're like, hey, where's the rest of my text? So that's overflow text. And if you forget that you have overflow text, or you don't realize it and you try to save the document, InDesign will warn you. And so how do you deal with it? Well, obviously, one thing you can do is change the size of the box so that it fits. But let's say you can't do that. You're at the end of the bottom of the page or whatever, and you've got limited space. So what you do is you click this red plus, boop, and sample text pops up on the icon, so I know what I've got. And I can draw a new box, and there's the extra text. Wow, that fit perfectly. Nice job. And so that's how you handle that. Very, very handy and cool. So much simpler than working with Word or something like that. Let's talk about moving objects around. So we got Tiff here. You'll see when I float over her, this art object here, I get the bounding box. I see the bounding box, and it's kind of a weird shape because it's catching this shadow here. She doesn't look centered, but she is. And you'll see this weird little like eyeball in the middle, or maybe it's like a CD. If I say CD, will that make me sound old? A Blu-ray disc, whatever. Anyways, that has a purpose for moving things around in an object. And it can mess you up. If you accidentally click this, you'll get some behavior that you weren't expecting, and you might say, what happened to my art? So let's say I want to move Tiff around. I want to move her over to this other page where the map is supposed to go. And I'll just click the object and drag her over, and there she is. Fantastic. But if I just want to move her around and not the bounding box, let's put her back. That's when I click this little circle. I click and drag that, and I move it around, and Tiff moves, but the bounding box stays the same, and she gets cropped. That will come in handy, and we'll talk about when, like an example of that later. Let's say you want to import your own art. You're like, well, I don't need the pan or whatever. I want a bag of rice in my mission template. So you would grab your art and drag it into InDesign. Now, a warning, I've got my mouse button clicked still here. If I let it go in the page, it's going to do one thing. If I let it go over an object, it's going to do something else. If I let it go off to the side, it's going to do something else still. We'll talk about what it does in other situations in a minute, but right now what we want is we want to let go of our button off to the side, and we can see our cursor, what we've got, and then we click and it will paste it into the document. And now I can move it around happily. I'll put it right here in front of the text, which is kind of a weird place for it to be. Let's fix that. Let's put it behind the text. So InDesign has layers, just like Photoshop or any other. If I want to change the order of the layers here, I think that this text layer is pretty far back. So if I right click on the object I want to change, and I come down here to arrange, I've got send backwards and I've got send to back. It doesn't have send forward because it is on the very top layer. So if I want to send it to all the way to the back, I know it'll be behind that text, and there it is. That looks great. If I click it again, I can bring it to front, bring it forward. So that's how you handle that, and that comes in handy. Oh, I was going to talk about text wrapping, because let's say I want it here, but I want to be able to read the text. So I got my object selected, and I come over here to text wrap and click it, and it's right now selected no text wrap. So I want to come over here to wrap around the object shape. Oh man, that's ugly. It's going to the bounding box. I don't want that. So I come down here to contour options. Instead of same as clipping, I'm going to come down here and say alpha channel. So that'll just go to the part of the image that's not transparent. That's way too close and it looks silly. So I'm going to come over here and change the padding. Top offset, I suppose, is what they're calling it. But if I increase that a little bit, it'll give me a little breathing room between the art and the text. And that's what I want. And it looks good. I mean, no, it doesn't really. The placement of it's weird, but you know what I mean. So that's great. Let's get rid of that bag of rice. I don't need that bag of rice in this template. So goodbye. All right, so you've got your art in, and let's say you want to manipulate it. You want to scale it. You want to rotate it, and you want to mess around with it. So we'll experiment on TIFF here. If you want to change the scale of an object, InDesign has a little bit of a quirk. If I just grab the corner and I change the scale, all I'm doing is changing the size of the bounding box, and it's just going to trim off the contents that are outside of the new bounding box size. So what I want to do instead is on a PC, I don't know on a Mac, probably Command Shift on a Mac. On a PC, Control Shift, then click and drag, and you can change the scale. Rotation works the same as it does in most other programs. You just hover over with the object selected, you hover over around the corner and you get these little arrows and you click and drag it around and do it that way. Why would you ever want to just change the bounding box instead of the scale of the thing? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's go back to our campaign title page here. And I've got this sample art here, and you're going to want something different for your campaign if you're using the campaign page. You could just delete this and put your own, but then you got to resize it and get it to fit right and everything like that, and that's a hassle. So what you can do instead is you can just replace the contents of the box. So remember before we said something different happens if you drag something in and you drop it off the page or on the page or whatever. This is the example of what you would want to do. So let's say I've got my art that I want to use. I'm going to drag it into InDesign, and I'm going to drop it right in the object that I want to replace, and it will just replace the contents. And now I've got to move that art around because it's not, I mean, all I see is the top of this zombie's head. So the way I do that is if I hover over the object, you'll see I get this little circle again. What I want to do is grab that, because now I'm not changing, I'm not going to move around the object, I'm going to move around the object content. So I grab that, move it around. I got these orange guidelines showing me the edges of the contents. You move it up a little bit further. This image looks like it's a little low res, but whatever. And voila, there's something called master pages. I've already got the panel open over here. And what they do is if I click on this master page here, it's not part of the document that would get printed, but if I double click it, this is the template where I'm saying this is what I want my pages to look like. I want them to have this on the sides. I want them, this is an auto page generator thing. You can look up how to do that if you want. This is the title footer. And this, double clicking on the master pages in the pages panel here is where you would edit those things if you wanted it to say something different. Maybe this is part of your own thing and you want to put your title down there. The biohazard thing back here is part of it as well. Now you'll notice if I click on the campaign page and get out of the master pages that this page right here does not have a master page assigned to it. That means you can inadvertently click and move around this biohazard thing, but that's for a purpose. Let's talk about saving really quick. There's a few ways to save InDesign documents. If you just press Control S or just say save, you are resaving over the INDD file that you're working on. Now that would be the template that you downloaded, so you might not want to change that if you haven't renamed it already. But still, it's just going to be a template. That's not going to be something you're going to share around the internet. So what you want to do is there's two options. You can export, which would make a PDF. You want to do print, probably. Just save that, and then you'd have a PDF of your mission. Or if you wanted to share the full InDesign project with any images you've added, anything you've changed, all the fonts and everything like that, well, you'd come over and you would say package. And that's what creates the folder that looks like the one that we downloaded. This one right here. All right, that about covers the basics of InDesign. Let's get into the template itself now. Well, the way this template works is you're meant to just replace the text that's already there because it's all already formatted, move things around, resize things as you need them, delete things you don't need, change the pages that things are on, that kind of thing. It's good to compare to official missions and stuff. When in doubt, you don't know how something should look at an official mission. There's lots of them. There is some variety. They're not all the same, and that can be like a little confusing, but it's not that important to stick to the conventions. Just make it look good. But if you want to, just look it up. One thing you'll notice is on some of the rule book missions and the rule books, they have a different color of the panel here, the sidebar. You can do that in this template. All you'd have to do is go to the master page and select that sidebar and drag in your different colored sidebar or whatever you wanted to be there, and it would just replace the contents of that, and everything would be how you wanted it to be. So let's open Arson here. You can see that it's laid out, it's pretty much the same. We've got intro text right here, campaign rules, headline, a hazard box, section headers, regular text. We got this biohazard watermark in the background. What we don't have on that campaign page, on the main one, is this textured sidebar. That doesn't appear on the main page, but it does on the following pages. Another thing about the campaign is that you'll notice with this particular campaign, the mission titles are a little bit different than they are everywhere else. Pretty unique to campaigns, and so that's been provided as well so that you can do things like that. So going back, you'll see those mission titles here, and you can just double click and change the title to whatever you want. That goes for all of this text, and the text that's in there is meant to be helpful, letting you know what should be going in that space. So let's move over to the mission pages now. So mission page, first up, you see there's a bunch of different title types. This is going to be your standard mission title. Let's open one of those really quick. A46, one of the newer ones. You'll see the way that's laid out. It's these big bold yellow letters and numbers. So that's what we have here. This style with the dark gray and the smaller, this is typically what you'd find in a rule book, the missions in the back of the book. This one with the red title is, as it says, used in competitive mode missions. So there, you don't have to stick to those conventions, but they're there if you want to try and match those things. Then it has the normal mission elements, right? Difficulty and all that stuff. Always put your name. There's a lot of fan missions out there that don't say the name of the author on there. Remember to put your name on there so you can get credit. Your narrative section, materials needed, objectives, special rules, and I look. I know it's weird. You got one with a dash. Down here you got bullets. I don't know. They do it different ways. That's the usual way that they do it in the official stuff. You get special notes. You get your blood splatter. You got your map grid. You got your art. This is where your map would go. Your map legend. So all that stuff is there. And you've got auto-generating page numbers. So the first thing you'll want to do is delete this little credit splash thing. You don't need to see that. Gone, deleted forever. You know who made it. Doesn't matter. And now we're ready to get started. If you look at arson here, you'll see that the the text area of the page is a lot higher than it is in the template. It will accommodate that. You can change that. So let's click this box, the object box, and I'm just going to scale the box, not the contents, and I'll just move it up. And then I'm going to move up this text, and then I can now, because I can grab the hazard symbol, I can move that up so that it looks a little bit better too. I'm going to zoom out a little bit and see. And that looks a lot closer to the official campaign. So that's an example of customizing this. Of course, you'd want to move up all this text and fill in more stuff. On this template, you're going to see a bunch of pink text and blue text and pink boxes. Those are just information about the template to help you out. You can delete those. You should delete those before you finalize your mission. So that's the first thing you should do. Get rid of that splash credit thing, and then get into editing the text and all of that stuff that you want to do. Now, let's say you're getting ready to start your mission, and you're all excited. You come down here and you're putting in, you want your mission to be like, let's say I put a T for TIE Fighter on here. I want it to be TIE Fighter 001. It disappeared. Why? That's because it overflowed. You can see I've got the overflow text plus here. How can I fix that? Well, the first thing I can do is I can resize, just as we said before. And then, of course, I would have to move over this portion of the title so that it looked good as well. And that will solve the problem most of the time. If not, if you still run out of room, maybe you have a long mission title here, you can change the font size, of course. Just double click into the text, select the text you want to do, get down here to character panel and change or you can be up here in properties too. Properties is kind of general for whatever you'd be looking at, and you can change the font size but I don't recommend changing the spacing really or the font if you want it to look official. Blood splatter. Blood splatter is ubiquitous in Zombicide. Every Zombicide ever got blood splatter all over the place. You're going to have it in your template or in your mission most likely. It shows up in a couple different ways. In this case, it's transparent. You can see. Sometimes it's opaque and you can't see through it. The fun thing about this blood splatter is it's not art. This is not a PNG. This is a font. And that's included in the download. So if I double click this and select it, I can just type in a different letter and I get a different splatter. So that's lots of fun to play with. There's probably like 100 different ones. So now let's say you don't like transparent, you want it opaque. This goes for any object. You can right click and come down here to effects, and there's lots of fun stuff you can do here. But let's hit transparency, and I've already got it set to transparent. So I'm in transparency and I've got the blending mode set to multiply. That's what's making it transparent. So if I change that to normal and say OK, it is now opaque.
All right, one thing I forgot to mention is the biohazard symbol on watermark on the campaign page. If you need to move that, it's locked. And the reason why is so that you don't inadvertently click that and select that when you're trying to move or resize other elements on the page. If you need to move that, you would just come up to Object and unlock all on spread, and then you can move it around. But I'm not going to do that right now because I'm going to play with this hazard box. Pretty cool hazard box, but what if it's not big enough for what I need, or it's too big? Well, let's resize it. Let's make some room by changing this text box here, and let's raise the title to about where we want it. And let's say I click this box and I'm like, I just want to make this box bigger. Oops, I only grabbed the top layer. That's because this hazard box is made up of several layers. You got the big orange box on the bottom. You got the hazard bars. You got a littler orange box in front, and then you got the text. And by the way, you can change those orange boxes just by selecting them and changing the fill color. But how do I select both of those layers? Well, I'm just going to drag my selection over the corner here so I know I'm getting both of those items. It grabbed the title too, which I don't want, so I'm going to press Shift and click the title, and that will deselect the title. And so now I've got the bottom two layers, and I'm just going to drag that up to where I want it to be. And okay, that looks much better. Now I need to grab the smaller orange box and resize that so it fits right. And now I can resize the text box and add more text. Your mission's really coming along here. You got the title, you got your text and rules, you got blood splatter, you got a cool hazard box with special information in it. You got everything you need except the map. There's a couple things that are involved with the map. You got your map tile grid, you got your map legend, and you have your map itself, of course. The makers of Zombicide support a tool that helps people make custom mission maps. It's called Map Editor, and I'm not going to go into how to use this program, but it has tokens and tiles for all the Zombicide games, and you can just place them and move them around as you want, and then you'd convert it to a PNG, and then you would drag that PNG into your mission document. I'll just do that, drag it off to the side, click, move it over to where I want it to be, resize it to about that pink box. I don't want the pink box anymore, goodbye. Oops, I see what I did. I trimmed it instead of resized it. I forgot to click Control Shift I, and get it in there where I want it to be. And now I've got my map. However, Map Editor doesn't do everything for you. Let's look at an official mission here really quick. We'll look at the Angry Neighbors one. So here we've got the map tile chart. Map Editor won't make that for you. It won't make a legend for you. It won't even provide the icons you need unless you extract them. And it won't do this kind of special area right here that's marked on a lot of maps. On a lot of missions, you'll have these hazard stripes denoting a special zone. Apparently in this mission, there's a pair of gun blades in that room. So Map Editor does not help you make those things. So we're going to go over those things now. So let's start with the tile chart. That's one of the reasons why I made this template, is because this is such a pain to make these little charts every time. And I tried to make it accommodate most sizes of missions. I mean, we got 25 tiles here. I think there's a mission that's like 6 tall, but anyway, you could copy and add that. So how do you change the shape of this? Most missions are maybe like 2 by 3, like 6 tiles. How do we change the shape of this? Well, I'm going to zoom in so I can get precise when I drag things around. But this is where changing the actual bounding box size instead of the contents comes in handy. So I want to click this box. I want to be careful I'm not clicking on any of these labels or anything else. I want to click the actual box, and without pressing Control Shift, just clicking and dragging, I'm going to move this down to where it's 2 by 3. I'm just going to try and get it as close so it looks good as I can. Alright, now I've left behind all these labels, but that's no big deal. Just click and drag, select, delete, get rid of all those. And now I've got my 2 by 3. But let's say I have a weird shaped map. Maybe it's like an L. Well, that's no problem either. I would just select all of this and Control Copy, Control Paste. I got a new one here. Move it to where I want it to be. That looks pretty good. And then do the same thing where I'll make sure I don't have these labels selected. So I'll click off of it and click the box. Trim that up and delete these labels. And there I have a pretty cool tile chart. And of course, to change the name of the tile, you would just type in the box. Well, we've made our map in Map Editor, and we've saved it as a PNG, but we want it to have one of those special hazard zones like the Angry Neighbors mission, specially marked zones with the hazard bars. So we're going to have to edit it in Photoshop. So let's open Photoshop here, and I've already got my map saved in. I have provided for you, if I can find the folder, right, here's the download folder. In Map Assets, we'll come over here to Overlays, Special Zone Overlays, and I've got all these different colors to choose from. I want a red one today, so what I'm going to do is just drag that into whatever photo editor you're using, Photopea, GIMP, whatever. I'm just going to drag that over the map and let it go. Let's look at the official mission again really quick so we notice some features of this. First of all, these bars are pretty thick. They're also transparent, and obviously they are fit inside of a certain room. So we want to do all that with ours. So let's say that we want to have, let's see, which room should we make the hazard room or the special room? Let's say it's this room right here, this conference table room. So let's move this over here and let's rescale it so that those bars are thick like the example mission. Maybe about right there. Now let's make it transparent. Well, first let's rasterize it because we're going to crop it in a second. So to do that, I'm going to right click and rasterize the layer, because otherwise if it's not rasterized, you can't crop it or anything. All right, so now I'm going to change the blend mode of this to multiply, just like the blood splatter, so that we can see through it. So I'm coming over here to normal, coming down here, multiply, and we can see that looks very similar to the way it looks in the official mission. Looks like those bars are still a little bit thicker though, so I'm going to change that. Let's make it just a little bit thicker. All right, now I want to crop everything that's not in that room. And I want to crop out the token that's in it because I want it to look like the token's on top of that. There we go. Now I can resave it as a PNG and import it into my mission template just like I tried to do before. Okay, let's drag our new map into the document. Do the same thing that we did before. Control Shift. We got our map in place. Delete that pink box. Okay, we're almost done. We just need to do the map legend now that explains what these tokens and icons and special zones mean. So we'll go back into the download folder again under map assets and map legend icons, and let's start building our map legend here. First of all, we need the starting area. So let's go under tokens, and there's the icon for it. Let's drag it over and drop it into InDesign. And this particular one already has label because that's always going to be on your map, player starting area. Let's resize that a little bit. It's a little big maybe. Um, let's do an exit as well. Also a little big. And now let's rename the label here to, in case you didn't know, exit. Oh, let's say exit zone, just to clarify. But what happens, I mean, you're going to need more than two. So let's make the one for our special zone here. That is going to be, these are all custom made, so special zones folder. Let's grab the red one, drag that, bring that in here. And now I'm just going to select the label and copy and paste, drag it over to my icon, and then I can change the name of it. Let's call it no spawn zone. No zombies spawn in this zone, apparently. Well, even if we had all of the icons represented on the map legend, we'd still have way too much space on this gray box. We'll want to change that. So to do that, let's click and drag over all of these icons, and we'll have to deselect a few things. I was expecting it to grab that pan, but it didn't. But it did grab the gray box. We don't want that. So Shift, click the gray box. Let's move these guys down here, and let's shrink this box. All we have to do is click the box, rescale the bounding area. Let's do it so that those arrows look good. And there you go. And now if I end up with this map legend needing to be above it or some other place, I can of course rotate the box to whatever direction that I want it to be. Once you've finished your mission and you know you're not going to need these extra pages, just delete those really easily. Just go to your Pages panel, select the numbers below the spread there. That's both pages. And right click and you can say delete spread, and you're good. You can delete the other one too, and you can save it. All right, wow. Well, if you made it this far, you must be really dedicated to making missions look just like the official missions. Thanks for watching that long. I love to see new missions and new campaigns and stuff coming out, so crank them out. And again, there's a Discord invite in the description, so if you want to come join the Discord and you haven't already, be part of the community, great. Have fun making missions and campaigns, guys. Over now.